All right, all right. We are here today with someone that I've known for over 7 years, which makes me feel a little bit old. But I have Scott Bliss from Sandler Sales Training. Welcome, Scott. How are you today?
Very good, Thomas. Good to see you. Thanks
Nice to
for
see
having me
you.
here.
I haven't seen you in a while, but it's great to see you again. You know, we were introduced to each other 7 years ago by a friend of both, Mike LaLoya, great guy in the brick community. So I knew once Mike recommended you were good people because he only knows good people.
Thank you. True. I agree with that.
So 7 years ago, you're at a crossroads. You got to go one way or another in the fork in the road. So let's get right into it.
Yeah, I had a corporate job, sales leader. That's pretty much where I spent my career, living a nice life. Good salary, good commissions, great teams that I ran, company car, expense account, the whole benefits, everything, good stuff. And my late 40s, around 47, 48, after 12 years with an organization, I was released. And
Yikes.
yeah, it was crazy.
That had to be a little bit of a shocker.
Definitely shocker, did not see it coming. The whole leadership team that I grew up with in the organization, they were all leaving and new leaders came in. The company was actually sold, but I was given a boot. I was let go. And
So what did you do? So they say we're going to let you go, and you've been employed for your whole adult life. This probably might be the first time this ever happens. So what do you do?
it was kind of like a catch-22 because on one hand, I'm like, all right, I'm 48 years old. And it's the first time in my life I'm unemployed. I didn't even know how to file for unemployment. I didn't even know what to do. I literally had to Google it, and that was number one. And then number
You
two,
figured it out, I assume.
I figured it out. But I'm always the type of guy, Tom, that I never live beyond my means.
Yep.
I always had the rainy day fund.
That's a
Being there,
smart idea.
absolutely.
Especially you had 4 teenage kids at the time, right?
I have 4 teenage kids at the time, all in high school, yeah. And, so listen, I'm not going to say it was all doom and gloom. I was there 12 years. I had stock options. I had severance, right?
Yep,
So
sure.
I had some decisions to make. And I always lived a life in corporate America. I was motivated by pleasure, meaning, again, I stated I never lived beyond my means, but I like nice things. I like the nice cars. We liked going on vacations. We have a nice home. We have nice things, right? But I was always motivated by pleasure. Every 2 weeks, the paycheck was coming. Once a quarter, the commission check or the bonus came in. Every paycheck, I would see what was going into my 401k. So further down the road.
So you were prepared. So you were prepared. It wasn't like
Yeah, I mean, but again, I'm motivated by that pleasure, right? So I'm at this kind of crossroads where I said to my wife, what do I do? Do I go take another corporate job? Or I've always had a dream of starting my own business. And my wife said, what do you want to do? And
That's a good wife. Let's
good
start
wife.
there because some wives would be like, "Yo, Scott, go get on the job path Monday morning because you got it.
Yeah.
We're ready to go. Like I don't want you home all day, and we're ready for a paycheck in the bank on Friday."
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then she was like, what do you want to do? And, I said, I've always had a love for sales training. And how that started, my first job ever out of college, I worked for a very small company, medical supply company out of Newark, New Jersey. And the owner of the company took a liking to me, took me under his wing, sent me to Dale Carnegie training.
Wow, that's a good. That's awesome to get that under your belt so early.
Yeah, I mean, he invested in me. I was 22 years old, right? And so I did that. I ended up staying at that company for 7 years. I grew from sales rep. I left. I was his VP of sales. He sent me to management training. I ran his team. I hired people. I traveled all over the world. You name it, I've been there. I mean, I went through books and books of added pages in my passport. And
Wow.
It was a fantastic job, a fantastic opportunity. And then every larger company I went to work for ever since. And listen, I wasn't a job hopper. I was loyal. My first job, I was there almost 7 years. My second job, I was there 5 years. My third job, I was there 12 years, right? So I grew within the ranks of those organizations. So those big companies I worked for, they always invested in the sales team in training. All the major sales training companies out there, you name it, I've experienced their training. And it was definitely helpful. The problem, I think, with those types of trainings where they take the whole sales team, they pull them out of the field, for 2-3 days. You'd sit in the classroom for 8 hours a day, and it was just like way too much. You're drinking water from a fire hose.
Yeah.
And when
Data
you
overload.
data overload, but it was all good stuff. And then when you leave there, you're going back looking through your notes, and you forget how to do things. And typically, when somebody tries something new for the first time, what happens?
If it doesn't always work on the first try, and sometimes you need 2 or 3 or 5 tries before it works. And I think to that point of the sales training, 2 and 3 days, you're trying to cram everything in. They get back and it's hard. You got to make it a habit. You can't just take in information once, like going to the gym one day and going crazy and then not going back, or trying it 3 weeks later. It's very much not going to be effective. Whereas I think where you're going with this is you got to a point where you developed something that was effective because it was ongoing.
Well, that's what Sandler offered. But with these trainings that I took before Sandler, they were great. But when you try something for the first time, you stink at it.
Yeah.
And some people will try it again and maybe improve a little bit better, but most people will stick back into their comfort zone and say, I don't like it, made me uncomfortable, I'm reverting back. And there were no reinforcement measures in place. We didn't have a coach to call. We didn't have somebody from the company that would hold us accountable. And so all that training, all that money would go by the wayside.
Sure.
But I did my best to try and hold my teams accountable to some of the stuff they learned, and it really made me look good because they went out and won all these awards and made me look good. So that's kind of like where I developed my love for what training could do. So when I said to my wife, I want to open up a sales training business, these were her exact words. She said, we have 4 kids in high school. And I said, yes. And Tom, I kid you not, she looked at me and she said, okay.
She's a trooper.
She's a trooper. She believes in me.
She believes in you.
Sometimes I laugh a little bit because I'm a confident guy and I believe in myself as well. But to have somebody that believes in you, maybe even more than you believe in yourself, like in your corner and supporting you, and she has a job. She works in the school system. She doesn't make a ton of money, right? But at the same time, to have that behind you,
to have that, somebody in your corner. I think a lot of times in life and sales and anywhere, if you have someone in your corner, you could do things that maybe you don't think you could do on your own.
Yeah.
And that's great that she was there for you to push you. So now you're at this crossroads. You had to either get another job or start this business. So what happened?
Yeah. So I was still, I went down to Sandler. I identified them as the best
fit for you,
fit for me. They're a franchise, so I bought the rights to represent them, and they give you great stuff. They give you fantastic programs. They give you great marketing. They give you great support. The only thing they don't give you is a client base. So you have all this stuff behind you, so you don't have to create a whole bunch of stuff, but you have to go out there and get customers.
So it's your job to sell the customer.
You got to sell it, right? And by the way, not only are you paying to acquire the franchise, but you're also paying monthly fees, and you're paying revenue share, and you're paying all these things. So you have to go out there and you have to make good on your investment. Yeah. You have to get clients. And so at the same time I was talking to Sandler, I was also still interviewing in corporate America. And I was thinking about wimping out of betting on myself and sticking the corporate route. And as you can tell from my history, I'm loyal, right? Yeah. I'm at these jobs a long time. So I got a job offer. To run a global sales team.
So if you're 48, let's just put it in perspective, and on average you're staying at these jobs 7-8 years, that's going to get you to 56.
Yeah.
If you go to the job. So.
Yeah. And so I'm at this crossroads now. Do I write a big check to Sandler and buy this business and then not have any income coming in, or do I go the easy route and take this corporate job where I know I could do a good job and build a successful team and run them? And it kind of just hit me. And after talking with my wife,
she is again. She
is, And I said to the general manager of the company that was going to hire me, I said, "You're going to think I'm crazy." I said, "But I have to turn you down because I'm buying my own business, and here's what I'm doing." And I shared with them what I was doing and why I was doing it. And his name was Scott also. And I said, "Scott, listen, I know I can come to you and work for you and do a great job, and it can last for as long as we want it to last. And let's say it lasts, based on my average history, let's say it lasts 5, 6, 7 years. Right? And then maybe we go off and do different things, or you sell the company, whatever it might be. I know that if I'm in my early to mid 50s, I'm never going to start my own business.
Mm-hmm.
I'm never going to do it. I need to do it now because it's a dream of mine. It's something I've always wanted to do. And if I don't do it now, I never will. And so I need to turn down your offer, and I'm going to go down this other avenue.
Was he supportive?
Supportive. He said to me, if I can't hire you to run my sales team, I will hire you to train them.
That's awesome. That's fantastic. That's what a great. You couldn't have asked for better.
Couldn't ask for better.
And at least you got the first client on the board before you wrote that big check.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I literally had my first client, and I officially, it's funny because when you buy your Sandler business, you go through a minimum of a couple of weeks worth of, they call it initial training, and that's where you get certified in all the products, right? Or at least you start. So I was in initial training and literally officially closed the deal while I was there in initial training. And a week after I came out of initial training, I was on a plane to Portland, Oregon to train this guy's sales team.
That's fantastic.
And so got a good start, been in the black ever since. That was back in 2017.
Mm-hmm.
And, you mentioned Mike LaLoya's name. And when I decided at that point in time, this was back in February, that I was going, February of 2017, that I was going this route. Knowing Mike knows everybody around, I said, Mike, I need a place to train. I need a conference room. I need to rent space. You know everybody. Who should I talk to? 10 minutes later, Mike texts me back a phone number and the name Tom Arabella from Wingman.
I know that guy.
Right. So I'm sure you remember the story. I called you up, and it was a day where there was a storm where there was a power outage.
Uh-huh.
And we met you at your office, your first office
in Brielle.
In Brielle.
Yep. Right
off Route 70. And my wife and I, there she is again, right? She came
Shout
with
out.
me, right? Janine.
Shout out Janine.
Shout out Janine. You came with me. She came with me, and we went and met you at your office. You showed me the conference room. You gave me a great deal to help support a new business owner. And you told me all about at that point, the Brick Chamber of Commerce. I immediately joined it, went there, started networking, meeting people, and I immediately started training out of your facility.
Yep.
And it was small. I think my first official training class had maybe 4 people in it. And it was weekly, and every week
Bonnie was in there.
Bonnie was in there.
Lisa
Mulhern. Randy from Chap Construction.
Oh, yeah?
Guy by the name of Dave Winters, who was a CFO of his own company. He was in it. My friend Mitch Kahn, who was doing some financial services sales at the time, he was in it, and this was literally my first first class. And
that's awesome that you remember all the people for the first class.
You never forget it.
Tuesday mornings, if I remember.
Tuesday mornings
at 10 a.m.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we switched it. We switched sometimes, and then as the months went by, and I think a year or so after that, I remember coming to you saying, I'm kind of not growing out of it, and I wish you had a bigger building because I love the arrangement we have here, but I need more space and I need it a little bit more regularly. I mean, I was using your conference room. That was your only conference room.
Yeah, that was
right?
our own.
So,
I'll tell you, that was a time where we were growing. We're kind of getting tight in that place in Brielle. And we knew if we're going to continue to grow and we're going to get more employees and we're going to expand our business, and we would just purchase, just got into another business, like we were tight on space. Like, I hated that we had that one bathroom in the back. Like, it was just it wasn't enough room. Like, when people have to wait to go to the bathroom, that's not an ideal situation. It's not a place you want to work at. So it was like, those were tricky times. And that was what, 2017 when you
2017?
2017 and 18. Those were tricky times in Wingman because we were trying to continue to grow and we didn't have the room that we needed.
Yeah.
And those days in the parking lot was always crazy too because your 5 cars plus our cars, like it got to the point like there was 0 spots. We were parking at the doctor's office across the street, but it all worked out.
I remember even we put tents out there and you held the chamber event.
Remember that? That was fun.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think we had a DJ.
We had a DJ. We had we had beer pong and flip cup going on. The girls from Investors Bank came down.
Yeah, I remember. And that's another thing, too, because I remember when I met with you, here I am starting my own business, right? And I'm picking your brain. Who do you use as an accountant? Who do you do your banking? And
Yep.
so, it gave me an opportunity to meet all these people and go
And they're
talk
all
to them.
local people. I'm a big fan of trying to use who you can that's local in the network, people that you know. Again, all the small businesses help each other. That's how everyone grows. And that's how, and again, I think it's not just about using someone. They have to do a great job. Like they have to perform a service for you. But I feel like that's a great way to start finding good connections.
Yeah, I remember when I closed one of my clients that their sales team is all over the country, 25 salespeople all over the country. So I had to have the ability to go virtual other than just go in Zoom on the computer. So you remember Keith from the chamber? I hired Keith and he came in and he wired up my whole, this is after I went to another building, wired up my whole office with all remote training equipment, the cameras, the speakers, the lighting, everything I needed for remote training. But I remember going back to, the original days in Brielle, I said to you one day, in total honesty, but also with a little bit of truth behind it, Tom, you need to buy a bigger building because I'm growing out of this and I need more space. And I think you said, be careful what you wish for. And about a week later, you said, hey, I bought the building across the street. I'm like, are you kidding me? So after you remodeled that, I moved in there with you right there on Route 70, right across the street. And that was great. I had my own little room down there. I could use it as often as I wanted to. And it was kind of like a good news, bad news thing. The good news is you were always so supportive of me and my business and other small business owners, and you gave me the space. The bad news is I grew out of that room too. So I ended up renting another building on Route 3433 in Wall Township and spent a few years there. Then COVID hits.
Yeah. So that kind of changed the game again.
Yeah. Our training was all about being in person and people would come weekly. They were, 90-minute, 2-hour classes. We don't overwhelm you with too much stuff in any one. Right. We typically teach one topic. We train one topic at a time. And so people will come in, they get there. We start at 8:30. They'd be out of there by 10. The next group would come in at 11:30. They'd be out of there by 1. And it was working great. And then COVID hits. And luckily, I was already set up to go virtual.
So you were a step ahead of the game.
I was just a step ahead of the game, absolutely. And we still had to do a lot to perfect our virtual training. But once we went virtual, it was a complete 180 from people coming in person to now it's all virtual. And I did have one client, though, that still came once a week. Every Wednesday they would come. And everybody had to wear masks, and we had to disinfect before they got there. We had to disinfect when they left. I had to take their temperature. I literally had to record a log of taking their temperature. I had to go buy a thermometer.
We had one of those. It was sitting at the front desk for a couple of years.
Yeah, and so we did that. But ultimately, for the whole 2 years of COVID, I was still paying my rent at my building, and I probably went there 20 times. 20. And my landlord was great. He was supportive. I probably could have stopped paying him, but that's not who I am. We had a deal, and I was going to abide by that deal. And but I probably went to that building and trained about 20 times over the 2 years of COVID. And I do most of my training out of an office in my house. And when I had some of my larger corporate clients, I would go to the studio there, the office there, to train. And then I'm going to mention my wife again. My wife says to me one day, she goes, "You're going to think this is a crazy idea, but I want to run it by you." And I said, "Okay, what's that?" And she said, "You're barely using the office that you're paying rent for, and I know you're doing the right thing, by honoring your lease and everything. But when you do your training here out of the house, again, this is middle of COVID, right? At the time, I had 4 kids still living at home. I had 3 dogs.
Oh, God. You have a full house.
I had a full house, right? And
there's 9 of you.
Right, and it's COVID, so it's not like you can go out and do things. So I'm trying to train, and the kids are all home. Anytime Amazon or FedEx or anything's turning around in a cul-de-sac, the dogs are going nuts, right? And the kids are popping in my office, and I remember this was kind of like the turning point. I'm on a late call, training call, and my office was next to the kitchen. And everybody in my house was always being as respectful as they could, except the dogs because they don't know any better. And, my wife's cooking dinner. And I think she was pounding chicken, right? And as I'm training, right, all you hear in the kitchen is bum, bum, bum,
Oh
bum, bum,
God.
bum, 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 bum. And my clients are like, what the hell is that noise, right? So I remember I said, hold on one second.
Hold on, we're having chicken cutlets tonight.
Yeah, I put it on mute and I opened the door and I said, babe, I'm in the middle of training. She's like, oh, okay, I'm sorry. And right. So I think it might have been like a couple of days later, or maybe even later that night, she goes, I have an idea you should consider. And I said, what? She goes, you're paying all this money for renting your building. You don't go there. You're training mostly from here. We have plenty of room in the yard. You should build a studio in the yard. I know you're going to think it's nuts. And I'm like, that is a great idea.
Brilliant.
That's a brilliant idea. So I literally built a 200 square foot studio. I ordered a shed. I ordered a shed, but I had real doors, real windows, insulated floors.
That's crazy.
It was
That's awesome.
delivered. And the reason why it's 200 square foot, because that's the amount of space you can have in brick where I live without having to put it on a concrete slab, which would have added a lot more expense. So they came, they delivered the shed. My brother-in-law and I did all the work. I had a buddy of mine who was an electrician, wired all up, custom the way I wanted it, put all the lights where I wanted, the outlets where I wanted, everything. My brother-in-law and I, we put up insulation. I had another buddy come and sheetrock it, spackle it, and tape it. My wife and I put a floor down, put all my production equipment in there, and it's a beautiful little
That's fantastic.
studio.
That's really cool.
And it's where I still do a lot of in-person training. Clients will hire me. I'll go to their facilities. I fly all over the country. And if I need space here locally, I have plenty of options. I know I can call you up on a whim and say, I need to rent a room for you for a few hours, and I know I have those options.
Sure.
But when COVID started dissipating and I was ready to go back to in-person, 99.5% of my clients said, can we stay virtual? And I said, we could, but tell me why. And they said, it goes quick, it's fun, it's entertaining, it's not just 90 minutes of lecture, it's content delivery, it's role plays, it's Zoom breakouts. All my training classes are almost like mini little networkings because you're meeting all these people. And so when we log in, we're already in our offices, and we do the training, we log off, we're already at work. We don't have to get in the car and sit in traffic. We don't have to drive anywhere. So, we stayed virtual and we figured out how to make the most out of it.
Now, what does Sandler as a corporation say? Like, since you're a franchisee, do they want you back doing in person, or are they good with the virtuals?
I think they're good with the virtuals. I think as a corporation, Sandler is a very well-known, very large organization, very healthy organization. We did lose a lot of franchisees during COVID. They couldn't adapt to the virtual. They just couldn't do it, and business suffered a bit. But there are still a ton of Sandler guys that are back to doing their public trainings in person. There's a lot that are doing it just virtually. So I think Sandler's good with it because they just want to support you and be behind you and help you grow your business however they can.
That's awesome. So 7 years into Sandler.
7 years.
And now what's the next phase? Are you going to continue running the way you run with the virtual? As you don't see it going back to in person anytime soon?
If my clients want to go back to in person, I will absolutely go back in person.
What do you prefer?
What do I prefer? Great question. I love the personal touch. I like being there. The virtual is good, but we can't stop the people from multitasking in the virtual.
And can you see they're doing that?
Yeah. I have rules.
You call them out on it?
Respectfully, like they don't realize they're being called out on it, right? But if you're in my training classes, you're paying good money to be in these sessions. Your video has to be on. We have to see you.
Sure.
And I always tell That's it. Camera's on. I always tell the leaders and managers and owners that hire me, you need to be in the sessions too, because you need to see what your people are learning, because ultimately you have to hold them accountable. It doesn't always work. Sometimes the leaders and managers don't always have the time, but we make sure when they do have the time, they're there. But we also make sure that part of our agreements are they need to make sure they let their reps know cameras have to be on and they're paying attention.
Sure.
And if I see someone multitasking, I will call them out, but not like call them out. Right? I'll ask a question. I'll be like, so what'd you think about that, Tom? How would you work with that scenario? And sometimes I say, oh, I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention. Can you repeat the question? So we kind of watch to make sure, because listen, their employers are investing money in them.
Yeah, like when you're here, you'll see if someone goes like this. It's much different than if they're well, they're on the computer and you can angle the camera and you're looking at this and you're going, all right, you know. So
Yeah.
it's a very different model in that regard. So I do think that that's good that you're holding them again. And again, I think it's great that you're going back to the owner and the leadership teams, because again, they're investing money and you want to see them get a return on that capital that they're investing.
Absolutely. That's it. And I have some clients that have been with me my entire 7 years of being in business. I have some clients that have come for 2 or 3 years. I have some clients that come for a year. Typical length of engagement is about a year, because it's a lot of stuff that we teach you over time. And the adult learning model stipulates pretty much that you have to see, hear, and do things over and over again to form new habits, right? So
Sure.
I can teach you a great technique, and you might try it once or twice, be uncomfortable, and then revert back to your old ways, And people that hire me, I'm also not only their trainer, but I am their sales coach. I'm their therapist. I'm their sales therapist. They have access to me for one-on-ones, and those one-on-ones don't only have to be about Sandler issues. It could be about any sales-related issues that they have. So, the way we train, and the great thing about the Sandler model is we do public training and private training.
Okay.
So what does that mean? If Tom Mirabella calls me up and says, hey, I want to do private training one-on-one, it's hard to do because it would just be way too expensive and it would just take up way too much time of yours and of mine, and it's not really duplicatable too much over time. But so if Tom Mirabella says, hey, I'm a one-man show, I want to sign up for sales training, we put you in a public training program where there could be anywhere from 15 to 20 to 30 to 40 other people in that public training program. Because what we teach is a sales methodology. So it's conducive to any vertical. It doesn't matter if you're selling marketing services, selling med devices, selling chemicals, selling insurance, selling real estate. It does not matter what you sell, because we give you that backbone, that methodology to follow. So we have a place for the solo entrepreneurs. And we also have a place in our programs for professional services, because when you think about it, you have a lot of lawyers out there, a lot of architects, a lot of engineers.
Yep.
These folks, they don't think of themselves as salespeople.
But they have to be.
They have to be.
Especially if they're a one-man show. Otherwise, they're not going to have any work ahead of them.
Yeah, they have to prospect. They have to go network. They have to close deals. And,
Yeah.
And so we have programs for professional services folks as well, and we have management training programs. So you asked, where does it go from here? We have leadership programs, management programs, sales training programs, customer service training programs, right? And when we work with companies, we want to instill a common language throughout, and so we have a lot of ability to.
That's great about the
do
customer
that.
service too, and the management. That's more than just, so it's very encompassing.
Right.
So it gets the whole team involved.
Absolutely. A lot of times too, I'll have clients who have their, medium-sized clients. Maybe they have 6 to 30 salespeople, and they don't want to put them all in our public training. So we do private training. So that's where we'll do a combination of in-person and virtual with the private company. So the point is, it doesn't matter the size of the company. Like I said, it can be, we have programs for the one-man show, and we have programs for, I have clients sometimes that have up to 50 to 60 salespeople.
That's great. And then, is most of your business on the Jersey Shore?
No, I'm pretty much nationwide.
Wow.
The way Sandler works is we kind of have like a geographies, zip codes. And what those zip codes say is like they can't really put another Sandler trainer too close, but there's another like 4 or 5 of us in New Jersey.
Okay.
And we all work really well together. We don't step on each other's toes.
I met Kevin a long time ago.
Kevin just retired.
Oh, good. Good for him.
Kevin actually spent the last year working with me.
Oh, cool.
His clients transitioned over to my practice, and he just moved to Florida.
Good.
And he still works with me. Still does. He's still helping me close a couple of deals that he was working on.
He's a good trainer. He was a good trainer. I went to one of his. I met him along the way. I met him somewhere at a networking event or something like that, and he was in like the Edison area, right?
Edison, yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. So he was in Edison. He invited me to a training, and I went up there, and it was a public training. It was a public training. There was, I think it was like a preview training, like
Yep.
because there were people there. He had lunch. It was in a conference room, but it was cool. He was a very good instructor from the 1 or 2 hours I was there.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. We do a lot of those. We call them executive briefings. They're like free talks.
Okay.
And what it is they're educational. I do a bunch of them. I do some like why salespeople fail, right? And we talk about the traditional
You sent me
ways
that
people
book.
sell. I sent you the book.
Yep.
Yep. Or I've been doing one lately that says why salespeople get ghosted, and we go over the top reasons why salespeople. But more importantly, it's what to do about it. And a big one today that I've been doing a lot of talks for Vistage groups.
Yep. Sure.
On AI is a big buzzword today, right? Yeah. So we talk about how to use AI for salespeople. Like what are certain things, simple things that salespeople can be doing to utilize AI in their everyday work. And of course, Chat GPT is a big part of it. Virtual note takers like Fathom, part of it. Softwares that plug into your CRMs. CRMs is part of it. Softwares that plug into your CRMs. A few different things. And people say to me all the time, AI is going to replace salespeople, which isn't going to happen. But I'll tell you what will happen. Salespeople that use AI will replace those that don't.
Sure.
They'll get further along.
Yeah.
With those that they don't use it. So just a number of ways to go and grow the business.
Great. So, how many more years you want to be doing this?
I could see myself doing this. My goal is to do it for as long as I possibly can. I want to retire doing this, right?
Yep.
And I love it. I'm passionate about it. It's fun. It's the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Right. It's, I told you earlier that I was always pleasure motivated. And I had the paycheck coming every 2 weeks, and I think where the grit comes in is the fact that there's 3 things I need to be doing every day: prospecting, selling, and training. And if I get too comfortable training,
yeah,
and not all my deals are evergreen, they don't always go on. I have clients that maybe have 6-month agreements, 3-month agreements, 1-year agreements. It's, most of these larger private clients. And if I take my eye off of the prospecting, now I'm done with these trainings. They've come to completion, and if my pipeline is not full, I'm in trouble because I don't have that paycheck coming every.
Yep. You got to train yourself then.
I got the bingo. I eat my own dog food.
Yeah.
Right. What
That's
we
fair.
train, we do, and we practice it every
that is
single
fair.
day.
That's great because you have to, especially in your world, and also you have to be good at the sales technique too, because otherwise these people are gonna be like, well, why am I hiring you if they don't like the way you go about it? You're in an interesting spot because you're selling them, and no one likes to get sold. But on the other side is you're selling them on the training that they're going to deliver to their employees to help grow their businesses. Yeah. So you're in a very unique spot in that regard because you have to do a great job. You have to canvas. You have to prospect. You have to keep your pipeline full. But then you also have to train. And again, because it's that type of business, you are the trainer too.
Yeah. Yeah, the funny part about that is, there's a lot of businesses out there that, can you send me a sample? You probably get it a lot. Hey, can you send me a sample of what the print might look like? Or can you send me a sample of this or that? So you have I don't have the ability to do that.
Yeah.
But when I use my process, the Sandler methodology in my sales meetings.
Yeah,
that's my sample.
After you sell them, because that was the sample that you were looking for.
Yeah. I mean, that's my sample.
Fair.
And it works well when you're talking to an owner of a company and they say to you after the discovery meeting, will you train my people how to do that?
Yeah, sure.
And that's my sample, and that's how people see what we do. And I literally, great story here is I was talking to a CEO of a company, and he was in his car, and he pulled over. We were on Zoom, but he was on his car. And we always teach our teams to make sure you get outcomes. You set up those next steps. So when you're ending a call, and if someone says to you, "Call me in 2 weeks," you want to avoid that chase. It's so exhausting to chase that person for 2 weeks to try to get that. So we teach you to set up proper outcomes. And I said to him, I said, "Bob, be happy to call you in 2 weeks." I go, "Let's just do this. Let's take 15 seconds, take out our calendars, and get that meeting on the schedule."
Sure.
And we'll put it in pencil, right? If we have to change it, we have that ability, but at least it's there.
Yeah, at least
so
it's-
we're not chasing people. And a big smile came across his face, and he says, "I know what you're doing." I said, "What am I doing?" He goes, "I know what you're doing." I said, "Nah, you're busy. I'm busy. I just don't want to
Let it
chase
go.
you."
Yeah.
Right? And he started laughing. He goes, "I'm in the car. I'm on my phone. My calendar's on my phone, but I don't know really how to get to it. I don't want to lose you." He goes, "I know what you're doing though, and it's cool. Call me in 2 weeks." And I said, "Okay, Bob." I said, what do you want me to do if you don't answer, I get your voicemail?" He goes, "I promise I'll call you back." He goes, "But keep calling me until I call you back." And I said, "I'm going to do that because I'm giving the opportunity to tell me no, and you're not giving me a no. So I'm going to keep calling you
Yeah.
till you tell me no." And he hired us. And when he introduced me to his team, I did in-person training. When he introduced me to his team, as he was introducing them to me, he brought up that story, and he said, "As soon as Scott did this to me, that's when I knew I was hiring him."
Sure. That's great.
Right. So you have to use what you learn. And the biggest thing with this is, I took the word training. Sandler, we used to be called Sandler Training. We're now called Sandler because we're so many other things than just training. But when you take guys that have been selling for 5, 10, 15, 20 years and you say to them, "Hey, we're going to put you in a sales training program," sometimes they get offended. Even though they might be struggling and they're not making their numbers.
But it's still hard.
right.
It's a hit on their ego.
It's a hit on their ego. So what we are is we're professional development, and selling to the modern buyer has changed drastically. And the way people have been successful even 3, 4, 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago doesn't mean they're going to be successful today. So you have to constantly look at ways to
Evolve.
and update and have an open mind and a willingness to learn, try new things, and get comfortable with the uncomfortable. Right? Because what we do is we pull you out of your comfort zone. And one of my favorite quotes, somebody said to me once, "If you're 100% comfortable in everything you do, you might just be mediocre." And that's kind of scary because true growth comes when you're pulled out of your
outside.
comfort
Yeah.
zone.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Oh, hell yeah.
And I know we talked about earlier in my corporate job being pleasure motivated, liking nice things. Today, the last 7 years, and then even moving forward, my motivations is, I would say it's still pleasure because I still like nice things. But what truly motivates me as a business owner that doesn't have that paycheck coming in every 2 weeks, and is the avoidance of pain. I want to avoid having to even budget even more than I do now. I want to avoid not having to say we can't take that vacation because we had a bad month, or I can't go buy that new car because I can't afford it. So the avoidance of pain is what motivates me to make sure that, again, I eat my own dog food, I practice what I preach, and I'm constantly out there prospecting.
Eat your own dog food. I think that's a great line. I
didn't make it up, but I use it a lot.
That's fair. So this is awesome. I'm glad that you came in. I'm glad we got to chat. So let everyone know how to find you on your website, how to find you on social media, and how to find you via the phone.
Sure. Cell phone, very easy, 732-948-2266. Even if you have questions, right? I'm not going to push you. I'm not going to do a hard sell on you. We don't do hard sells. I'll answer all your questions. My email is scott.bliss@sandler.com. And my website is maximumperformance.sandler.com. I offer anybody to come sit in on one of our classes as my guest, check us out. And again, we'll answer any questions you have. Come experience the program, and we'll see how we might be able to help you.
If you sit in on a class because you saw it on the podcast, make sure to tell them you saw it on the podcast. Maybe they'll give you 2 classes.
Absolutely. You
All
got
right.
it.
It was a pleasure to have you on today. It was great to see you.
You too,
And I'm
Tom.
glad everything's going well. 7 years in.
7 years in.
Keep
Yep.
crushing it.
You got it. Thanks, Tom.
You got it.